Good morning, Steve Free in Chicago with the Morning Grain News. Well, this is one of those rare occasions in which we really don't have an overnight trade to give us guidance on opening calls. Calls are kind of mixed, maybe a little bit higher. I think one focus is still South American weather. It's going to be warm and dry in central Brazil and the southern half of Argentina over the next 10 days. The maps do show on day 10 through 12 some showers for most of Brazil and Argentina. Two things. Number one, I don't know if that far out is reliable. But number two, our weather guy continues to see a lack of a motor that would bring building moisture in northern South America into the Brazil growing areas. So there is some moisture buildup, but really no high pressure system in the western part of South America to push it into the dry areas of Brazil. Again, in the back of our minds, we have to remember that La Nina tends to have drier than normal conditions across southern Brazil and eastern Argentina during the growing season. So we did see in Argentina, they lowered their crop numbers and they lowered their export numbers for wheat, corn, and beans, and they also lowered their carryout numbers. So that continues to possibly be supportive for U.S. soybean and corn exports. We also note that the southern plains will remain dry. I know it's wintertime and dormancy time, but again, any moisture down there could help add to the soil moisture reserves for the spring. As far as the Black Sea is concerned, from a wheat standpoint, the CME is making new highs in that area. It's still dry in Russia, parts of Russia and Ukraine, but the long-range 30-day outlook suggests that they might start seeing normal rainfall. So we'll see if that has any impact. International Grain Council did lower their corn crop number 10 million tons, but it's in line with the USDA. The other thing will be today's export sales report. A lot of focus on soybeans to see if China was a seller or a buyer last week, but again, if China does come in and buy a little bit more U.S. beans, if the crush stays where it is, we could have a sub 100 million bushel bean carryout here in the United States, and that would suggest finally pushing over the $12 area in nearby futures. We did see Malaysian palm oil overnight sharply higher as India reduced its import tax, and that should give support to the soybean oil market on the opening and should help soybeans. As far as deliveries are concerned, there is some registrations for beans, for meal, oil, and wheat. There's really only a few contracts of corn registered for delivery, but we have seen the funds back out of their DC open interest and widening of the spreads. Cash markets are soft. They were soft last week. I think part of it has to do with having some good ownership for exports and domestic use, but also just kind of getting into this holiday quiet period where there's not a lot of new demand. As far as the outside markets, again, talk of a vaccine, it could be helpful. Talk about the new administration adding $9 trillion to our debt could actually begin to move interest rates a little bit higher and could actually increase the demand, especially if the vaccine is successful, for raw materials and food. So again, expect kind of a quiet, mixed opening, and as always, these are my thoughts and not those of ADM or ADM Investor Services. Have a safe and profitable trading day. Remember, always treat people like you yourself like to be treated.